True Crime Grapevine fans. It's me, Patty Lee, your dyslexic armchair detective. And this is my 40th roundup episode that I'm just going to tell you what I talked about in all my lives last week. So, hi, if you're new, my name is Patty Lee. What I do is there's so much crime and not enough time. So I watch all the crime, sort of synthesize it, try to give it back to you in a form of edu-tainment, but it's my opinion, my speculation from all the other sources on the interwebs. So that's the grapevine aspect of it. I sort of squeeze my favorite sources, and I'll let you know what those sources are if you'd like to go directly to that source to get the juicy scoop directly from the vine. But there's not enough time, so I sort of try to get it all for you into one encapsulated program. I go live now every weeknight. I'm still trying to figure out the sweet spot. It's 9 o'clock this week, except for Fridays. And Fridays, I'm going to go live at 5, just to get ahead of everybody, because there's tons of people who go live on Friday nights. And you can listen directly to your favorite ones. I don't want to compete. I'm just here to sort of help you if you want to get an idea of what everybody's talking about on the True Crime Grapevine. And then you can go get specifics and particulars from your favorite sources, or I'll provide you with some of mine. Okay, so last week, this is my 40th episode, and last week that I am telling you what went on was January 16th to the 23rd. Oh, also, I drink with every show. Why? Because crime is stressful. And although there's lots of things you can do, knit, read, exercise, or you can also take a refreshment. So this is a Sweeterita from the Bethany Frankel's company, which I believe she sold, the Skinny Margarita company, but it said sweeter, so I like sweet. It's a salt rimmed glass. Ooh, tasty. Not as good as my sister-in-law makes in South Cackalack, but pretty good. All right, so what happened January 16th through the 23rd? You can go to all my lives to see each night what I updated in more detail. This is just going to hopefully be a quick overview to catch you up. So, last week we had a horrible ending to the Athena Brownfield case. She was a missing child. We first thought she was 3. It turned out she was actually 4. She was living with a relative who was known as her caretaker. It was Alyssa Adams and Alyssa's husband, Ivan Adams, who somehow, I don't know exactly when they broke up, but it appears that Christmas night we find out from Ivan and Alyssa talking that Ivan beat Athena to death and then took her body to their former property in a different county. This was in, they lived in Cyril, Oklahoma. Well, they lived there, but they had 4 children, and Alyssa apparently was on TikTok a lot and talked about, she did a lot of lip syncing, but also about being a mom of 4 and how busy it was. You never saw Athena, and we never saw her sister Adina, who was 5 years old and found wandering by a postal worker, where the family had cleared out. So we found out that she was missing January, what weekend was it, a week ago? I believe it was on the first week in January, but, it was the 10th, the second week. But the mom who was supposed to be watching them was gone in Oklahoma City with her new boyfriend over the 7th and the 8th. I don't know where her actual children was, but it appears as if the living sibling, Adina, was there by herself. She told the postal worker that they left her. So that's really scary to think that it is her cousin, her second cousin. So it's her mom's first cousin. Left these 2 little girls with her cousin for They think between 1.5 and 2 years. Anyways, everybody was concerned. The 5-year-old was found. Where was the 4-year-old? Well, now we know she had been killed at Christmas time, and I'm assuming that's maybe when the family broke up and Ivan took off, because he was found in New Mexico, or Arizona, excuse me, Phoenix, Arizona, and he is being extradited back. So, bad ending, horrible case. Hopefully the sister is with better people now. Just, it's horrible. Another case of a missing person not reported at times, the Anna Walsh case, we also got more information from the murder charge affidavit for her husband. A very interesting character in my own opinion, speculation only, but he appears to be a sociopath, Brian Walsh, who didn't report her missing. We found out it's actually her job reported her missing. At first he was held on charges because he didn't tell the police exactly what had happened. Her job had reported her missing, and then he was like, oh yeah, by the way, my wife has been missing since, she left for work, which was not accurate. He was already wearing a monitor and only allowed to go certain places because he had a major international art fraud case, and he was going to be sentenced for that soon. And he went to places he shouldn't have. He took his phone to some of them, but not all of them. He was captured on videotape. What we found out in the affidavit for murder, the most striking thing, and I each day I detailed this more and more if you want to go back and look at my lives, but he Googled things like how to get rid of a 15-pound woman, I believe, which his wife weighed 115 pounds, how to dismember a body, how long do bodies smell, how long do they decompose. I read the whole list. I believe it was Thursday. But it's damning. It's horrible. So that was our second case of the week that I covered. So let me tell you now about the Idaho case. So last week, after we had the search warrant the week before released and everybody had read it, besides finding out what they were looking for and finding what they found, which wasn't the major things that we would hope they would find, right? They didn't find any of the clothes mentioned, the van shoes, they didn't find the knife, but they did find, hopefully trace evidence like hair, some blood stains, it seems like, red stains. They found a lot of hair, maybe one of an animal, maybe a dog, maybe not, we don't know. So if you're watching the law enforcement channels, retired law enforcement, they think, well, and they took the computer tower. They think what was found was great. I mean, I would have liked to seen the literal smoking gun, which would have been the knife that matched the sheath. There was nothing found apparently in his office. He was a graduate assistant. He was a teacher's assistant. That's one of the jobs you can have as a graduate assistant. You could also be like a research assistant. He was a teaching assistant at Washington State. Everybody is still arguing about exactly when did Brian come to Washington, when was he there, because there are other incidents that happened in the spring. There was a weird incident in the neighborhood of the girl's house having to do with some girl's underwear taken out of her luggage that was in her car. It was like taken out, refolded, and the underwear was placed in her cup holder. That was March 2nd. And everybody's like, well, Brian could have been there. Well, Brian was in college in Pennsylvania graduating in his master's program. Remember writing that really weird, very strange to us. If you watched my lives, you would know that actually one of the supervisors of his master's program came out and said those questions sounded weird, but they're actually protocol that they use, and it wasn't like he made up all this weird stuff that even is still now being sort of intimated on the interwebs. So just know that what you hear from law enforcement is way more important than the scuttlebutt, because at this point, besides that surveillance, we haven't heard anything from law enforcement, but we hear a lot from YouTubers and other media. And not all of it has turned out to be accurate, at least to the people involved. So this besides the list of what they seized and what they wanted, they did not find, like I said, they didn't find anything in his office. And he shared a TA, GAs, graduate assistants, they share offices with multiple people. So it probably would make sense he wouldn't bring a bunch of stuff there. And his computer would have been, like, if he had an actual desktop computer, would be the university's. So they didn't get anything at the office, which I don't think is surprising. They did, like I said, get the stuff from his apartment, and we don't know about the car or his family's house because that was a Pennsylvania search warrant, and that we have not seen yet. So there could be a lot. They're testing all the trace evidence and the things, that stains that they found. They could be very damning. And if anything is the belonging to any of those girls, or the DNA of the hair can be traced back to the dog's DNA, he's toast. But we still have to consider, and nobody likes this, what if he's just a weirdo who was a great setup for somebody else? Was he the person doing that weird thing in the neighborhood in March? Well, his spring break in Pennsylvania started the weekend after that. Everybody in the residence dorms at DeSales had to be out by the 3rd of March because then it was considered the start of spring break for them. So could he have flown out for spring break? Maybe, but flown out and then gone over there, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, from what we know so far, but maybe if we get more information, right? So the other things that were the scuttlebutt that people are discussing as if it is accurate, and it has not been confirmed by LE, are the health forms that were written on a forum in 2011 that were traced back to a Brian who did a, everybody says it's the Brian. Now, I still say there are things mentioned, like him moving out, which he wouldn't have done in the July 4th of 2011. It says, like, this is my last. That still bothers me, because what happens is when I read something, I tend to look for what doesn't fit before I look for what fits, because I seek to disconfirm. It's just a weird habit I have. It makes me annoying in every class I've ever taken, because as I listen, the thing that strikes me as like, hey, wait a minute, are the things that don't fit, not everything that does fit. Not that I still think he looks to be the best person for this. But let me just say, I really do think we need to wait just to make sure, because mistakes have been made in the past in cases. He is a weird duck, no doubt. He was in their neighborhood for some reason, but we don't know what it is. It appears to be that he did all this. And I think, it's like 99 point whatever. But I'm not, that 1% that's left it still bothers me. It bothers me that all these people on the interwebs jump on things that the law enforcement has not put out, and they all report it. And then as it gets reported, everybody refers to another report. So all you need is like the Insider or New York Times, which, no offense, have gotten things very wrong on some very big political things, especially. Like, these people are not without, like, just because you're a big name doesn't mean you can't make a horrible mistake if you're relying on a source that you can't confirm. And media used to confirm things. They used to triangulate. They'd have to have 3 sources. And now it seems like they need one trusted source, which can be problematic. So I don't think that, and I don't think that whole health thing matters anyways. The person was disassociative. Okay, so, are you trying to give him an explanation for why he did this and get him out of trouble if it is him? Because that's not really cool either. I don't know who that person is, so I discount that. The other thing is, he was direct messaging. This was the Two People magazine things. He was direct messaging one of the girls. Was he? Do we know this? I mean, somebody said, according to a source close to the investigation, or some such language. Okay. And then there was the Mad Greek restaurant thing of Brian went in there. And I'm not going to say who I heard another YouTuber say, well, you know, they noticed him. He ordered so weirdly, and we know what we heard from his aunt by marriage, who is no longer in the family, about how supposedly he made them get all new, or wanted them to get all new pots and pans. But this person, oh yeah, he ordered 2 pizzas. I remember. And this YouTuber goes, yeah, because, you know, it was one of the few places you could get vegetarian, vegan options. And I looked up, and please do this as well. It takes 2 seconds. Use your Google Maps. Look up Pullman, Washington, and look up Moscow, Idaho, and then hit like restaurants, and then hit vegetarian, vegan. There are a number of places. In fact, in Moscow, down the street from the Mad Greek, is a Mod pizza place that specifically mentions having a vegetarian pizza. So now the Mad Greek owner came out and said, this is not true. That they don't know who this person claims to be, but that their employees are all on the same page. They're not going to get involved because, you know, they're letting the law enforcement, and that what that was stated, you know, they just made this post. Basically what was stated, they do not feel is true. They do not stand behind it, and they think basically it's just more grist for the internet mill. And if you look at my lives, I've said I wasn't. It all fits very nicely. And when things are packaged too easily, you got to wonder, you know, we want to make sense of something horrific. And we think of people like, they're like, oh, he was mad at the girls because they didn't like him. We think like normal people think. We don't think like killers and sociopathic killers think, which is they hook onto somebody for whatever reason, and that's it. They hone in. It's their fantasy. It doesn't have to be about a real thing it's not like, oh, and they're very angry because they got turned down by somebody. That's what a normal person thinks has to happen. What would make you so crazy that you would do this? This sad thing could just be, and I think the target was Xana. Why? Because Brian was going to the Washington State University. And Xana's sister went to the Washington State University. Brian, and I don't know when he visited, I think he visited in April because that was something about meeting with the police in Pullman where he wanted to get that job. If he was in Pullman for the spring family day, like I don't know if the university, when they had their new recruits coming in to sign paperwork for the next, you know, school year to be a GA, did they invite him? Or did he just, as soon as he got to school and was getting settled, see Xana's sister? Her LinkedIn says that she did work in the community with recycling and cleaning up around campus. She did work with the law, with helping, I think it was kids, like a child advocate in the legal system. I mean, her sister seems pretty incredible, just like all the kids seemed. And there's a picture of Xana, her sister, and her dad at a family thing. So was Xana on campus? Or did he hook into Xana's sister and follow her to her sister's house in Moscow? Either one of those, or just think this girl's cute, look up her last name, look up her family, all of a sudden, you know, on social media, please be very careful about using your exact real spelling of your name. Do not use your exact birthday. Try not to use your real last name. Like, your friends, you can tell, right? They'll know who you are on Insta and all the other social media. Besides, like, LinkedIn. But then you have to be careful about putting in identifying information. You know, that's what a resume is for. Everybody wants to be friendly and noticeable. Please protect yourself. Because this monster, if it is Brian, let's just say, for the sake of argument, because he is the suspect that's been arrested, he most likely, there was a connection to the Washington State campus and then took him to Moscow. He didn't just show up in Moscow for no reason. I mean, he could have been trolling, but it seems odd that one of the girls has a sister on that campus not too far away from where he was. So is that a connection? I think that's a way bigger connection than saying he somehow just picked out these pretty blonde girls. Everybody's assuming it must be Maddie. It's got to be Maddie and Kaylee, because look at how cute they are. They're so beautiful. Again, people are thinking like a regular person, like, oh, in society, people love the blonde girls. Well, if you paid attention to the woman who did date Brian, one single Tinder date, but I mean, she had a picture of herself in 2015 when he dated her, and she looks very similar to Xana. So maybe his type is dark-haired, straight dark-haired girls. It doesn't have to be like what everybody would think everybody's attracted to. Again, you're thinking like the average regular person. Many people are attracted to brunettes and not blondes. It happens. Not everybody likes the Stacy as it, and we don't know for sure he's an incel. I think whoever did this has problems. And serial killer, in my opinion, if it was Brian, we don't know, he's innocent until proven guilty, but I don't think it is easy to understand how those people think, because they're not normal. It's not a regular thing. It's sick. Sorry. But serial killers hone in on a target or a type of target, and it really it's not as complicated as somebody made them angry. All it is I want that, I will take that. All right, so that was the Idaho case. That's all that was all last week, is all a bunch of rumor, and we'll see. And the courts did come up with a second gag order, because these people keep talking and making up stuff, and the courts, and People Magazine said one was like somebody with law enforcement background confirmed about the Mad Greek saying that they had taken video, and the other article about the DMs said an investigator close to the case. I mean, was it the Gonsalves investigator, lawyer guy? I don't know. Are they just talking to the YouTubers? I don't know. All I know is that I'm not talking about anything other than what law enforcement. Well, I think the connection is Xana. That is my... Oh, also, Xana's door was broken the week before. And if you study anything about serial killers, many of them would go into the homes beforehand to get like the lay of the land before they did anything. And if you think of this, perhaps, that back hill, if somebody came in that back hill, very close to that back hill was that third floor, jutted out, the top deck, which if you went in that top deck, nobody's expecting you, and guarantee he's locking that third floor sliding glass, because who's coming up that high, right? Where they might actually lock everybody said it wasn't locked, the sliding glass door of the kitchen, but walking into a kitchen, you are still taking a chance. Climbing up to a third floor, especially where nobody can see you because it's wooded right back there, to me, that was very much more likely that, and then that would explain Kaylee saying, I think someone's here, because if they entered through the bedroom where she wasn't in and her dog heard, that would be what the roommate DM heard, sounded like plain scuffling. What that could have been is, and Kaylee said, I think someone's here, could have been the dogs making noise. Kaylee comes outside, the person, grabs her, shoves the dog in the room, and then has to take care of those people. Maybe he was just going to sneak down and go into Xana's room. We don't know. But Xana's door was broken. For some reason, the lock was broken a week before the murders. And we know that Xana cried, that the roommate heard her being spoken to by a male voice, whoever the killer was, say something to the effect of, I'm here to help you. Now, did this person have an image that they were supposed to be with Xana, and bad Ethan was, look, I took care of him, don't cry, I'm here to help you, and she was like, I don't know, I don't like you, and then we have no idea. But that is just as likely as the idea of, well, if he was there just to get those other girls, why wouldn't he have just killed them and left? The Xana as the target makes much more sense to me personally. All right, that's just my opinion. Please put your comments below if you have an idea. If you think I'm full of crap, tell me. That's okay. Tell me what you think. I bet you guys have better ideas as well. So go ahead. If you could give a thumbs up, that'd be great. Make a comment below. YouTube likes all that. That's the Idaho case. All right. There were 3 important legal cases going on this past week. We have there was Daybell Vallow decisions being made about they couldn't talk before court to get their story straight, but they said, one lawyer said they wanted to strategize, and John Pryor was like, well, not strategize, but Judge Boyce put the kibosh on them meeting separately because it wasn't really mediation without the prosecution being there. Now, Scott Reich on Crime Talk, who is a defense attorney, didn't look at it the same way, because he's a defense attorney probably. But I think these people they're co-conspirators. They don't get to talk it out. In my opinion, I thought that was a good decision. Judge Boyce also said there would be no sequestering of the jury. And he made a 3rd decision. What was his 3rd decision? That there's one DNA test left. John Pryor said, he wants more time. Judge Boyce said no, unless it looks like the prosecution isn't sharing it in time enough for him to do something with. But they're going to trial April 3rd, be there or be square. The other important trial stuff going on, so today, when I'm taping this, which is Monday, and I'm taping almost at, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and almost here, Eastern Standard Time. The Murdoch, looks like Murdoch. The Murdoch trial for murder of Paul and Maggie started with jury selection today. So jury selection involves a lot of what we call voir dire, which is French for to speak the truth or to speak plainly. And it has to do with both sides asking the jury questions to ascertain if they're going to be biased towards one side or another, or if they seem like they can be fair. Gonna be kind of hard. Carleton County is Murdoch County. They were prosecutors there for going back 90 some years, Alex family. Now, are they angry at him because he took advantage of a lot of their people? Or are they still under the sway that Murdochs are good people and maybe Alex is being railroaded? I don't know. So we're going to hear a lot about that. I will be talking about that in my live all this week. So the big thing that came out that I talked about, I believe on Friday, was that they showed where the bodies were found. And it's very interesting because Paul was shot with a rifle and Maggie was shot with automatic weapons. Their bodies are not that far apart. So did Alec use how did he whip out 2 different guns? I don't know. Alec seems like the kind of person that pays to get things done. And we also know that he's got a drug background. So I don't know. I need to see more evidence. It's weird. The 2-gun thing is very weird. I want to see how that's going to be explained. But we won't see that until after the jury's picked. That will be probably at least maybe this whole week. I'll let you know. The last big case was the Maya Millete. She's missing mom. She's from Chula Vista, California, in San Diego County. She went missing January 7th, 2021. There is no body being found, so it's one of those no body crimes, which, like the Anna Walsh story, can be difficult. And like the Anna Walsh story, we also have some interesting Googling that came up in this preliminary hearing by her husband. Things like how to subliminally control my wife, and what was his other one? Is manhandling wife abuse. So, and a lot of spell casting. If you don't know what a spellcaster is, I explain it in the lives. Using spellcasters seems very strange to like a waspy white woman like myself, but culturally, a lot of cultures believe that you can have an intermediary between the spirit world and, to get favors and to get help in our everyday problems and the mortal world. So he was doing that. So obviously there were problems. The whole week was spent with law enforcement as well as family and then her bosses. And the upshoot is she wanted to leave for sure. She had separated in May and June of 2020, but then she had made up her decision to leave after August. He was completely becoming over controlling. He controlled the finances. He had to have all her social media passwords. He thought she was cheating all the time. If he caught her talking to a guy, that must be she was cheating. He had called her work and acted like she was acting inappropriately. I mean, he really was so jealous. He was out of his mind and couldn't control himself. And all the evidence points to a man who was losing his wife and was so desperate that it looks as if he unalived her in the night of January 7th, when there was some video and auditory evidence of the children being outside at about 10:30, and that there were some bangs that the FBI couldn't say for sure were shots, and then the next morning, him pulling his car up to the house where you can't see what he's putting in the trunk, and then taking off with his 4-year-old son, conveniently without his phone, for 12 hours. I don't know. You can make a decision. This is just the preliminary hearing, which is there enough probable cause to bind him over to the Superior Court for a murder trial? They're taking a lot of time with this because it is a no-body case, but the evidence seems overwhelming to me personally. That's just my opinion. We'll see what the judge decides. And that continues. I'll tell you more about that. That's continuing today. And then the last bit was there were 2 celebrity cases that were talked about last week. The Alec Baldwin being indicted for involuntary manslaughter in New Mexico for the shooting that happened on the Rust set, where he was both the executive producer and he was the star of the show. They were setting up a shot and he pulled the trigger, and it was supposed to be a gun loaded. There were no live rounds that were supposed to be on the set. Anyways, somebody did put live rounds in there. He's gotten charged. The armorist, a 25-year-old woman whose family was in this business, was also charged, but she it was weird because he wasn't supposed to A, be pulling the trigger. That's why he's getting charged. And B, she was supposed to have checked the gun, but she wasn't supposed to be, I don't know how to say this. Cognitively, I understand she wasn't checking for live rounds because live rounds weren't allowed on the set. The person they are not looking for and have not mentioned is, who brought the live rounds? The set had a lot of problems. People were mad about where they were staying. The accommodations, the work hours were horrible. They didn't feel it was safe. So it looks like somebody set up a little safety test to fail and to prove their point. And instead, somebody ended up dead. But that's not talked about. That is more interesting to me than a blowhard, star. Yeah, he had no reason to expect there ever to be live rounds. So is he ultimately in charge because he's a producer? I guess you could make that case. But I can't say he committed involuntary manslaughter because he had no way of knowing that there were live rounds. Neither did the other girl. I want to know who put the live rounds in the guns. Don't you? All right, and then the very last celebrity case that I mentioned was Carol Baskin's 2021 report, statements in Tiger King 2 are making the rounds on social media again about, she said her husband, Don Lewis, was alive and that the Department of Homeland Security had sent her a letter saying it. She had this formal letter, and that's bullshit. Sorry, but it is. The actual sheriff in charge of that county, I think it's Hillsborough in Florida, where they're in charge of his missing case, said no. That nobody has found him. And Homeland Security wouldn't be in charge of that anyway. And Homeland Security wasn't even an agency when he was declared dead in 2002. The agency was developed in 2003. So none of this sort of fits. Carol Baskin I don't know if she killed her husband, whacked him, as the song goes. But, I mean, that's just speculation. She is innocent until proven guilty. I just know, she did get his insurance money. She did declare him dead, so it's weird that she said somehow he's alive, because doesn't that make that fraud then? Is she admitting to fraud? I don't know. It's very strange. Very strange. But kind of, interesting because of the Tiger King thing. All right. So that is the quick catch-up from last week's True Crime Grapevine. Tonight, we'll be going live around 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So around 5 o'clock Cali time, I believe. Anyways, so, hey, listen in if you want to hear me tell you what's going on. Otherwise, you could hit like, subscribe, drink to this upcoming week in true crime. Lord knows what it might bring us. We have a couple things to talk about that are crazy, as always. I will be covering the mass shooting that occurred in Monterey, California, Monterey Bay, around LA, and I will also be covering, there's a case that took place in Austin, Texas, and another prosecutor in South Cackalack. Alex Murdaugh isn't the only one allegedly unaliving wives. I'll be talking about that later tonight. All right, bye. Oh, like and subscribe, please. Thank you.